welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Bob Stewart. I've got my good friend Anthony Zapata on the call with me today. I'm going to introduce Anthony in just a minute. We'll do a little bit of house cleaning here before as we get started. People are kind of pouring into the room right here at the top of the hour. We always get this crush, and so I like to give you guys a minute or two to get in here, get acclimated to your sound levels. I can be a little bit obnoxiously loud sometimes. Anthony's a little bit more refined than I am, so we'll get him on here in a second. There he is. Anthony, how you doing, bud?
Hey, doing good, Bob. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. I appreciate it. All right, so this is what I want you guys to do for me, okay? Anthony and I just spent the last 15 minutes. We're socially distanced ourselves, right, Anthony? Anthony's up in Bellingham. I'm down in Seattle. Anthony, there's something going on here in the Seattle area. Maybe everybody's heard about it. I want you guys to do me a favor. Check in for me and give me your anxiety level. Like, my anxiety level is always really low. Maybe I'm a 1 or a 2 right now. I'm still not that concerned about the coronas, right? And this is a serious deal, though. I'll save you guys my opinion on it. Here's right now for me the biggest deal. If my kid's school shuts down, Anthony, if the boys' daycare shuts down, I'm in big trouble. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do at that point. So that's my next domino. If that one falls, I'm in trouble, buddy. I'm in trouble.
I feel bad if that happened for you, so I hope that doesn't happen to you, Bob.
Yeah, Curtis says, mine's low, but there are some people acting crazy. Jessica says, I need toilet paper. That's funny. Anthony said last week he literally needed toilet paper, and I was telling him, yeah, I'm like 3 days away from actually needing it, you know? And then I've got to go to the store and have everybody look at me like I'm a crazy person, but I'm not. Not that if you went out and got toilet paper, you're a crazy person, although maybe you are. I don't know. There's a lot. Guys, we have a public health crisis on the verge, right? And it's going to emerge over the next week. We're a week behind somewhere like Italy. So look, Anthony, in the midst of a never waste a good crisis, right? So if we're going to be socially distancing ourselves and we're going to be bunkered down at home, what better time to set up my business for a month from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, than to get into my database, and really focus on my lead conversion. Is that what you guys are going to be doing, Anthony? Is that kind of your plan for the next little while here?
Well, the plan, Bob, is we're going to double down and we're going to triple our lead conversion, because right now we know a market shift is going to be happening, and we can't wait for it to happen and be wondering, what do we do in 3 months? We need to be ahead of the game.
Awesome. So we've got you guys here today, and we're going to share with you. And let me let's do that right now. We're going to share with you our presentation today, lead conversion on steroids. And look, steroids have some side effects. Anthony, are there any negative side effects of just putting your nose down and going to work on lead conversion?
Yeah, the biggest side effect is a larger checking account with more money in it.
Ouch, ouch. I don't know. Is there anybody out here that's that's a good one, my friend. All right, so guys, before we jump in here, I'm going to so Anthony Zapata is to me like a superstar and one of the engines that runs the Ben Kinney team. He is an agent, a listing agent on the main hub team for Ben Kinney's kind of real estate empire. Their team. Then these numbers haven't been officially announced yet. They were the number 1 Keller Williams team last year. They did 2,800 and some odd Keller Williams transactions. Ben has an organization or two outside of Keller Williams. So in total, his team did over 3,000 transactions last year, and it's going to put him really close to being the number 1 team in the United States when later this year the Wall Street Journal comes out and Real Trends comes out with their big lists that they do every year. Now, Anthony runs out of the hub, Ben's original location. Anthony was in many ways trained by Ben, and a lot of the scripts and the strategies and the techniques that he used are things that either he learned from Ben or he's conducted himself. Anthony, how long you been doing this, man? And how many listing appointments do you think you've been on in your career?
That's a good question, Bob. Well, I've been doing the real estate business now for 9 years. I was lucky enough to be trained by Ben directly and his assistant, Jalene. So I was very hands-on in the business, going on listing appointments with him when I first started, and even doing buyer consultations with him and how to interact with clients. You know, and off the top of my head, I'd say I've been on probably over 400 listing appointments in my career.
Do you these days when you go out to a listing appointment, how often, like what's your close percentage on those things?
We're just over 85% close rate on our listing appointments that we're going on. That's an actual listing appointment, not just we're going to meet and greets and build a relationship.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And tell me, like, I have this just, you know, because Ben brings you up and talks about you in different classes we're at or whatever. And I have this, like, in my head, I have, what's the word? Like, in my opinion of kind of, and in my head, you're this guy that's really mastered like scripts, and you've mastered this kind of art of the close in terms of getting somebody to agree to meet with you for an appointment. How would you describe your strengths kind of as a real estate agent?
Well, my biggest strengths are going to be my phone skills, so talking to people over the phone, and then my in-person presentations, whether that be with sellers or buyers or even just recruiting people. Those are the skills that I've learned from Ben over the years. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it, and it's also how you present yourself. Not necessarily just the way you dress, but also your body language, and being able to show that off appropriately, that people will trust you and want to work with you, and it just makes it a lot easier for closing.
Awesome. All right, let's get in here a little bit, Anthony. And so I want to start with this slide because, and guys, this slide looks different than the whole rest of our presentation just visually on the screen as you look at it. This is actually from our Ben Kinney companies. And so you guys are here kind of probably were invited by Brivity, which is our software division of the Ben Kinney companies. Ben also owns brokerages. He owns a sales team. Then we own a variety of software companies. And every year in January, we do our kind of state of the company. So this slide actually came from our state of the company presentation that Ben did. And I just love this. You know, sometimes you know the answer, you just don't like the answer. And I want to start with that here as we talk about lead conversion today, because the number one thing we've found across, and we have this really cool, Anthony, kind of ability to, we've got 29, I think we're up to now, expansion teams around the country. And while we try to get them all running towards the same models and systems, they all start somewhere different. And so I do the training for those teams, and it's fun and cool, and it's kind of interesting for me to get to watch these teams kind of move from doing it whatever way they were doing it to kind of the way we do it, which is what we're going to talk about today for, you know, basically the whole webinar. But and here's the number one thing that we see about these teams. The secret of lead conversion is activity. And look, I wish I had a magic bullet. And we're going to talk about some of the, I mean, a lot of what we're talking about today, Anthony, right, is activity. Like, what do I do? How do I say it? How often do I do it? But at the very end of the day, it comes down to you doing it. Right now, something like Brivity is going to give you, you know, the auto plans and market reports and listing alerts and things that we can use to back up that activity. But Anthony, how many times have you sold a house to somebody that you never like talked to on the phone?
I don't think that's ever happened, Bob. Nobody ever reaches out to me just to say, hey, could you sell our house really quick?
And they just do it on text or an email, and then you just never talk to them, right? Like, I mean, look, so at the end of the day, activity, right? How many calls did we get in today? How many people did we try to connect with via text, right? Like, activity ultimately is the answer. And I think we all know that, like, somewhere deep down in us, we know that, like, those months when we, you know, when we had eight pendings and man, things were zooming along, it was because of activities we'd done, probably a high volume of them in the past. I know the story of my mom, and, you know, she did 79 transactions her first year in real estate, but early on, one of those early months, she did 26 open houses, right, Anthony? So she did a lot of activity to kind of just create that trajectory for her business. So I just want to start with this, right? A lot of this is just about your level of activities. Anthony, how many phone calls do you get in every day in your business, or what's your target?
Our target is based on contacts. We want a minimum of 20 contacts. To reach that goal, you're going to be calling on average 100 to 150 people to get your 20 contacts.
What if
and
you call the first
time, that's going to be about 2.5 to 3 hours of your day.
If you let's just dive in on that a little bit. If you make 20, what if your first 20 people answer and do you stop or do you keep going?
Well, to win the day, for me, I have to get an appointment. So if I talk to 20 people and I don't have any appointments, then what else am I going to be doing? Because I don't have anywhere to go. I need to be back on the phone or at open houses getting more contacts.
Okay, so let's go. We're gonna unpack this idea of like a high volume of contacts. But I just want to start with this, right? Like, this is the answer. So if you were coming here to figure out how you could convert more leads without picking the phone up, right, go somewhere else. I'm sorry, we don't have that answer for you. Let's before we kind of get into the 10 days of paid, and let's talk about some foundations. We need to know our scripts, schedule our time, know what our actual goal is as we sit down today to work in our database, know what we're going to do next, and then approach from every angle. And so let's dive in on this a little bit. Know your scripts, Anthony. And I think when I look at you as somebody that really like has commanded what you say when you're on the phone. And Ben always told us, we can have success in real estate if we say the right thing, which is our scripts. We say it enough time, we say it to enough people. Talk to me for a second about kind of your mindset around scripts, and why they're so important.
Well, I think a lot of people have that mindset that, oh, these scripts, they don't sound like me, that this isn't going to help me get business, and nobody wants to talk to a scripted person. But if you walk into the store, Bob, and you're going to buy a new pair of shoes, because I know you like your shoes, if you're going to be going in there to buy a new pair of shoes, what's the salesperson going to come up and say to you?
They're going to say, can I help you with anything, or stuff like that.
Say, can I help you? And what are you going to say back?
No, I'm just browsing every single time.
I'm just looking, right? And that's your script. You have a script for any salesperson that comes to you. I'm just looking. I'm not interested, just browsing. I'm in the mall shopping.
Yep.
And we need to understand that all of us are already scripted in our habits. And so we just need to create some better habits that are more effective, that have some proven strategies to get people to either meet with us, work with us, or list with us. So what we do every day on our team from 8:30 to 9 a.m. is we practice scripts. And this week we've been focusing on our listing presentation. Funny thing about the listing presentation is when I first started, whether I was hanging out with Ben in the office, I was on a fishing trip with Ben, we're eating ice cream on the couch, watching a movie, he asked me the same thing every single time. Do you have the listing presentation memorized? Do you have the listing presentation memorized? He wasn't asking me that because he wanted me to be a scripted person. He was asking me that because he knew if I had the listings presentation memorized, that I was going to be consistent in my listings. I was going to get the exact same objections every time. I was going to get the same responses every single time. And it was going to make it easier for me to convert more leads.
That's fascinating. So when you just shoot from the hip, you get different objections, and so you're always handling fresh objections as opposed to kind of funneling somebody down the same path where it's like, okay, here comes, I know there's like they're going to ask this objection, and sometimes they don't always ask it, right? But that's fascinating. You know what those objections are going to be because you're saying the same thing every time.
Well, and the best part about knowing what they're going to be, Bob, is you can just go ahead and knock out every single objection because you're going to go ahead and bring up the objection before they do.
Because you've done it so many times in the past that exact same way that you've now built those objections into your presentation.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So the scripts become kind of this living, breathing thing that potentially are changing a little bit based on the way people are responding to them.
Yeah, exactly. And that way, if you want people to sign listing paperwork, or you want buyer agency agreements signed and more contracts signed, get really good at saying the same thing the same way every single time, and bring up the objections that most people are telling you. So that way there's nothing for them to say besides, where's the pen?
How do you guys determine what scripts are we going to work on today or tomorrow or a week from now, or is it just are you guys recycling through the same ones over and over, and every couple of weeks we come back and do similar ones, or where does that kind of come from?
Well, we kind of base it seasonality. So right now for our location, our spring market's the biggest time for listing. So right now we're focusing on our listing presentation. And then throughout the year, we have a couple key or core scripts that we like to focus on. And we'll even do the same script multiple times during the week if we need to, especially if it's an important script that not everybody's getting down or not everybody's saying the right way. So as Ben says, we want to keep it simple. And so we always like to keep it, one of two reasons. That's one of my favorite scripts. People walk into my open house for one of two reasons. One, they're thinking about buying a home, or two, they're thinking about selling a home. Which one are you? Same thing when they come to our website, Bob. When people visit my website, it's for one of two reasons. One, they're thinking about buying a home, or two, they're thinking about selling a home and wanting to get a value. Which one are you, Bob? When people ask me about real estate, it's for one of two reasons. One, they're thinking about buying a property or getting into an investment, or two, they're thinking about selling. Which one are you? We don't need to overcomplicate the scripts. As long as we're saying the same thing and we know how to say it, we can use the same scripts in multiple situations.
You're giving me the chills over here. That's a good one. I mean, that script, open house, come to the website, text it on my quickly sign. People text on my signs for one of two reasons, right? They're looking to find their next house, or they're wondering what their own house is worth because they live nearby. Which one are you? You guys, can you tell, like, Anthony's delivered that, practiced it, said it, probably said it 1,000 times, practice it if 1,000 times, if not more. Like, it's ingrained in him. Like that's a really good one. Give it to me one more time.
Well, Bob, usually when people walk into my open house, it's for one of two reasons. One, they're thinking about buying a home, or two, they're thinking about selling their home. Which one are you?
Because if he just says, hey, thanks for coming into our open house, what brings you in? Well, I'm going to do the same thing I say to the shoe store guy. I don't know, we're just browsing around, we're just looking, we're just out for a neighborhood stroll, right? Like, I was out for a neighborhood stroll because I live down the street, and I'm curious what this guy's got his house listed for, because that impacts the value of my house, and we might sell if he gets this, right? Like, that's okay. All right, so let's move on. Know your scripts.
Any objection, Bob? Just looking. Hey, I'm glad you're just looking. Usually when people come to my website, it's for one of two reasons. When they're just looking, one, they're thinking about buying, or two, they're thinking about selling. Which one are you? It doesn't.
Anthony's a master of taking you back to his agenda, right? I mean, a lot of times that's what it is. You're able to kind of get them back on track with these scripts.
Yep.
All right, so you guys get up, you get to the office. By the way, we have one of our offices. I don't think you guys are this diehard in Bellingham, Anthony, but Adelina down there in Austin, who runs our Austin expansion team, she locks the door at 8:30. If agents aren't there for scripts, door's locked. Like you can show up tomorrow. This is important, right? Like, we are running a business here. And the second part of running a business is and converting leads is schedule your time. So if it's important, it's on our calendar. Anthony, talk to me a little bit about, so for you guys, that's 9 to noon, and you guys kind of bunker down. Just talk to me about that whole idea of showing up every day and knowing that every day from 9 to noon, we're in here doing our lead conversion activities.
Yeah, it's really important to stick to that 9 to noon time frame if you possibly can. What happens, I've seen in our business, is we get distracted, right? We get that pending sale, and there's an emergency happening this morning. This morning, the title company didn't get their escrow money. What are we gonna do? And everybody freaks out. And that emergency took you probably 2 hours to fix, and you didn't do anything besides make a few phone calls, and the title company and the buyer ended up figuring it out. And that's the problem, is we get distracted and we don't stick to our calendar. And that 2 hours we spent talking to people to figure out the issue could have got resolved if we didn't touch it and we just went ahead and we did our prospecting from 9 to noon. And then now you're a day off. And if you're a new agent, they say if you miss one day by being a new agent and prospecting, you could be off by a week of business. So think if you missed 1 or 2 days because you weren't prospecting one day, and now you're 2 weeks behind in your business and you're trying to get it pending, you're just digging yourself into a deep hole.
It's fascinating. You came up kind of in Ben's world, right? And he tells us all the time that there are very few emergencies in real estate, if any. Like, and so he believes that, like, look, that 3 hours, whatever happens in that 3 hours, short of like your listing catching on fire and burning down, there's no emergencies. And even when the listing catches on fire and burns down, you couldn't do anything about it. The fire department had to figure that one out, right? Like, so there are very few emergencies. Now, some people say, no, I gotta get my client. We are able to bunker down in that time because, one, we know there's no emergencies. Two, Anthony, talk about the idea that like when you walk around your guy's office between 9 and noon, there's not a bunch of people trying to get at you and say, hey, can you help me with this? And hey, and check this out, because everybody's bunkered down, right? So talk for a second about just that idea of like the camaraderie of everybody being bought in on this.
Yeah, if you're going to be a leader, you need to lead by example. And if everyone in your office knows that you take the time every single morning from 9 to noon to prospect and get business, then they're going to see the results, because they see that you're the person with 10, 12, 18 pendings. You're the person that has 5, 10, 15 listings on the market right now. They're reaching out to you to schedule your open houses. And so we really focus on leading by example on our team and doing whatever we have to protect our lead gen time. One thing that we do to do that is we use a Slack channel. So Slack has been a good method for somebody to reach out to us, and in between a call we can go ahead and Slack them back. But we don't have to get out of our desk or walk across the office to talk to somebody that wants to know, hey, could I host an open house this weekend at your new listing in Bellingham? It's a lot easier just to go ahead and be on the phone and type back, yes, you can go ahead and host that this weekend, and not be wasting time. Because even just 2 or 3 minutes here or there a day, Bob, that's going to add up to hours after the end of the year. And if you're going to be wasting an extra 40 hours just by wasting a couple minutes per day, think about how much business you're losing by just a couple minutes a day.
It's compound. Those compound minutes stack up over a year, right? Mm-hmm. Right, let's move on. So it has to be on your calendar. If it's not on your calendar, I promise you guys, you're not going to do it. And if you're not, they do it every day, right? I like that. So every day you give up as a new agent prospecting puts you behind in your business by a week. That's a good one. All right, so know your goal, Anthony. And I put this in here as we were making this because I've been talking to a lot of our teams recently, and I started to realize, like, I don't think some of our agents know what they actually want to do when they get on the call. I think some of them are trying to like find that new lead, the perfect house or something, right? But like, talk to me about, what is your actual goal?
Well, my goal with anybody is either to strengthen the relationship or get an appointment. And that's my goal with every single person I talk to. So for me to do that, I add value. And if we can add value, somebody's either going to schedule the appointment with us because we're giving them value, or they're going to want us to meet with them, send them listings. They're going to want us to be their realtor of choice. So my goal is, I got to get an appointment before I leave the office today. If I don't get an appointment before I leave the office, then I'm going to be staying there. Once I get that appointment, then I can go on to the next thing.
Can I pin you down on something?
Yeah.
Because I feel like this is like a cliche. Like, you want to add value. What the hell does that mean? Like, if I was a new agent on this call, I'd be like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to add value. But like, what does that mean? Like, give me an example or two of ways that you look to add value to, let's say, an internet website lead that you maybe talked to once and now you're reaching out for that second time or something. How do you add value for that person?
Well, I learned early on in my career, Bob, that if I try to sell somebody on something, most of the time they're going to say no. You know, if I try to convince my wife that we should buy another house, she's going to tell me no. But if I could show somebody the value in something and they could see that in their own lives, then they're going to be the one asking us for the appointment. So an example that I have was yesterday I was on the phone and there was a seller lead that came into our database and they said, yeah, we're thinking about having an appraisal done on the property. And I said, well, that's great. You know, usually when people come to my website, it's for one or two reasons. They're thinking about selling or they're thinking about refinancing. And it sounds like you might be looking at one of those two options. Which one are you? And he's like, well, we're thinking actually of selling the property, but we'd probably end up selling it on our own because everybody up in our area is selling for sale by owner. I said, well, no problem. I'm glad you brought that up. And I was like, are you aware exactly what properties in your neighborhood are selling for? And he said, no. He's like, I haven't looked it up. That's why I was wanting the appraisal. And I said, well, that makes sense. And I said, do you have a marketing strategy that you're going to use, that you're going to provide to the buyer so you can attract them to your listing? And he said, well, no, I thought I just put a sign in the yard. And I was like, well, a lot of people do. I'm glad you brought that up, and we can talk about it later. So I was curious, do you know how much properties in your neighborhood are selling for? Are they selling for 95% of list price, 100%, 110% of list price? And he's like, well, no, I don't know that. And what happened was, by asking him those questions, Bob, he realized that I know more than he does about real estate. And to him, that was valuable. And so I didn't even have to close the guy. He just said, do you think you could stop by? I said, sure, I'd be happy to stop by. I just got a couple more questions before we meet. So a lot of times adding value isn't that it's some shiny object that we have to provide them, Bob. A lot of times adding value is asking them questions that you know they don't have the answers to, and they think you're the expert now, and that's the value right there.
That's powerful. Anthony, has Ben had you read the 7 Powers of Questions? Have you read that one? Oh yeah, you're in my masterclass. Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually read that a second time now, Bob. That's such a good book. Even Debbie DeGroat's like pushing me to read it again. So that book and the questions that you have has changed my business this year alone. And I would recommend anybody to read that book at least
Anthony,
twice.
How many transactions did you do last year?
Last year we did 60 transactions.
And he has a coach. Debbie's your coach, is that right?
Yep. Debbie DeGroat works with me as a coach.
Awesome. All right, so know your intentional next step. So there's always, so in working with the lead, and look, when a new lead comes in, we're going to give you guys the Ben Kinney Team 10 days of pain. If you're a Brivity client, you're going to be able to use it. If there's going to be a link I give you, and you go and click that link, and bang, it's in your account. But where we see this is insanity, by the way, because the plans can do the work on our teams, right? But once we talk to somebody, all of a sudden there's no plan for what to do next, right? Because if I talk to 100 people, Anthony, if you talk to 100 people in your business, and that's going to take you about 5 days, right? Over 5 days, you're going to talk to 100 people. Are any 2 of those like exactly the same?
No, never.
No, never. Right? So all of those people, though, are going to have some next thing that Anthony wants to do with them. One guy, it's going to be call him in 3 days and see if he talked to his lender, because he said he was going to talk to his lender, even though Anthony wouldn't let him go like that. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. And this person's going to be, call him in a week because this reason. And this person's going to be, they're a month out. And then all these people are going to have some next thing I want to do with them. And none of it is going to have any uniformity to it, which means, and this is the heavy lifting of lead conversion. We have to just go in and use whatever system we're using, and Anthony uses Brivity, right? But to set what that next thing I'm going to do is. And guys, I've probably seen more databases than anybody in real estate. I would literally stack myself up against it. I do it every day. I'm inside of your guys' Brivity accounts. I'm inside of the Ben Kinney Team accounts. I work with all 29 of our teams, the highest performing team in the United States. And guess what? Every day we find a lead where there's notes in the lead. Anthony, does this happen, Anthony? Do we find leads every day that somebody just forgot to set a reminder for, and now it's been 5 months on a lead where the last note said something like, yeah, they're about 3 months out. They're going to be really ready to sell in December. And geez, we're looking back at this thing in March. Like, we see it all the time, right? Even in our highly functioning business.
Yeah, it's actually probably the most depressing thing for any agent that doesn't set the task. And then in 3 or 6 or 9 months, they come over to me and they say, yeah, that seller lead I was telling you about, they ended up listing it and it's already sold because they got 5 offers on it. And I said, well, what happened? We forgot to call them back.
I mean, it sounds crazy, right? You're kind of like, wait, you what? But the reality is when they initially talk to that person, and at the high volume we do this, Anthony, that was just one of 20 people they talked to that day, and they talked to another 20 people the next day, right? And these things are, unless that person's like, hey, I want to go see a house, a lot of those kind of, we think of them as hot, right? Oh, I got a hot one here, but tomorrow I've got a hotter one. And so I always do this exercise with our teams where I take them into their Brivity. I take them in and I show them their hot leads, and then we just put them in order by the last time you've talked to that person. And a lot of people I do this with, you can immediately see how uncomfortable they are because they're like, oh my God, like we have this, like, what are all these leads that were hot and it's been 8 months? And they start to kind of break out in hives. And I had one lady 3 days ago that had a little tear coming down, and she was like, you're going to make me cry. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. But you guys aren't setting reminders to call even your hot ones, let alone like that person that's 3 months out or 6 months out or a year out. So having that intentional next step and getting that thing into play in my database, in my CRM, so that I don't forget. And then part of what Anthony's doing when he comes in to work his leads on a given day, right, is he's saying, okay, what did I tell myself in the past was something I need to get done today? Know your intentional next step.
Right.
Anthony, approach from every angle. So when you get in here, you're basically, you like to be on the phone, but you're not just on the phone, right? What else are you doing? Are you maybe reinforcing that stuff with a text or an email? I mean, talk to me about kind of coming at these things from every angle.
Yeah, you really have to. Right now, most people are going to be focusing on text messages. That's the easiest form of communication. So, and I have just a short story on that. I had a seller lead that was referred to me from a friend. I've never met her, never talked to her over the phone. She would only text me. The problem was she'd only text me when she wanted to text me. And so it became an issue because the listing wasn't selling, and we weren't getting showings. And it's like, how do you get in touch with a person that only texts you when they want to text you? So we got to get creative. So one thing I did with her was I would go ahead and I'd leave a long message. I'd leave a message exactly what's going on, and I'd be like, hey, Bob, we're not getting any showings on your listing. The showings we do get, they say it's overpriced. The property is not in very good condition since it's vacant. The tenants left it in a very bad state. If we don't get a price reduction in the next 2 days, there's a really good chance that we're going to be out of the market and we're going to get less money than we would if we just did a price reduction. So give me a call as soon as you possibly can. This is very important. And then I went ahead and just texted her. And I just said, hey, I left you a quick voice message. If you could just take two minutes to listen to it and give me a text back with what you think. Every single time I did that, she texted me back and said, yeah, you're right. Go ahead. Because you can't always portray things on a text message or an email. So I always like to go ahead and double dip and do at least a phone call and a text message, or a phone call and an email. Because if you're not getting a hold of people or you're not getting responses, they're not just going to respond after you call them 30 times. You got to go another way around it.
I always think, like, when you make a phone call, there's like this perfect confluence of events that need to happen, right? First off, they need to be somebody that answers calls from phone numbers they don't recognize, right? And a lot of people don't, right? Then they need to be in a position to actually answer the call, so not driving, or although some people answer when they're driving, right? Not at work, not whatever. They have to, feel like talking to somebody at that time, right? There's all these things that need to come together in order for them to actually answer the call. But a text message, you send it, and like your seller friend there, it just sits there until they're ready to respond to it. And then, but even if they don't respond to it, most people, and it's a ridiculously high percentage of text messages that get read, right? Unless you're texting like Ben Kinney, like your text messages are getting read. Now, whether they respond or not is another question, right? But we definitely want to approach from every angle. And we see all the time where agents like get in there, man, they got busy today and they made a bunch of calls. And then I'm like, did you text anybody? They're like, no, gosh, I was just too busy getting into their calling. And I'm like, yeah, okay, don't stop doing that because that's really good, but maybe add this, right? So slow down sometimes. Take that extra minute or two to spend with that lead, especially if it's a lead. And this is big for me. If they have established that they're willing to text with us, then we absolutely, because I'll see this, right? I'll see like go into a lead. There was text communication like a couple months ago, right? And then all of a sudden, like the last 3 times the agents tried to reach out to him, they called. And I'm like, look, he showed you early on what his preferred kind of communication method was. It was texting. I get that you would rather talk to him because you think you're going to be able to provide value that way more effectively. But he still just right now wants to text. So why go away from that and just, have had your last 3 attempts be calls? All right. This one to me just, I can't tell you how often we see this. And again, guys, we work with our teams and we do what the next slide's going to show you over and over. We're always in here working and trying to help our teams get stronger. We try to never leave the ball in the lead or the prospect court. And here's what I mean by that. I'll give you an example of one we saw recently. So this was on one of our Atlanta team. And this gal must have been trained by Anthony because she got an appointment with the lead. And it was all through text, believe it or not, which doesn't happen very often, but she'd been able to set this appointment with the lead. And like after they agreed they were going to have an appointment, the lady then came back and said, well, what are we going to talk about at our appointment? And she did this whole, another text. Here's all the stuff we're going to talk about. And then the lady said, yeah, maybe this was a little bit premature. We haven't even talked to our lender yet and gotten approved for financing. So how about we do that first, and then we'll reach back out to you. And the agent said, oh, that sounds amazing. That sounds good. Yeah, talk to your lender and then get back with me. Which is fine, I guess. But here's the problem: she didn't set a reminder on that lead. So she had essentially, Anthony said, all right, lead, you take the ball, you run with it. And when you're done, you throw it back to me, right?
Yeah.
Anthony, is there a better way to do
that? Yeah, I mean, you can't be taking that risk, Bob. I mean, that's like we went shopping the other day for a new bed. My wife and I did, and the sales guy, he didn't ask for my information, and he said, "How about you give me a call when you guys are ready to buy?" I'm not going to call the guy back first off because he's a really bad salesperson and I don't think I want to work with him. But most likely I'm going to forget about it because it's painful for me to spend that much money on a bed. So I really don't want to do it. And then in the next couple of months, I'm not going to reach out to him. And so he made a huge mistake by leaving the ball in my court. He should have got my contact information. He should have been following up with me. He should have got my email as well and home address. He should be reaching out to me at least 3 different ways. Otherwise, I'm never going to remember who that guy is or where he even works.
Like we have inside, Keller Williams has Keller Mortgage. I don't know. And inside of our Ben Kinney companies, like in Washington State, we've got our own mortgage company, BKC Mortgage. And so I had told that lady, I'm like, don't, what are you doing? Like, don't just I'm like, at the very least say, hey, you mentioned your lender. Is this somebody you guys have worked with a ton? Because we have an amazing lender. In fact, one of the things that our lender offers is our 0 lender fee mortgages. And we were able to save our last client $3,850. Do you mind if I pass your name to our lender and he can reach out and talk to you about this? Right? Like, don't leave the ball in that lead's court. And we see it all the time. And sometimes I think we see it because the agents make like the wrong assumptions. They make these negative assumptions about a lead, right? Like, oh, well, they wouldn't want me. They said, like in that particular example, what she told me, Anthony, of why she didn't do what I suggested was she said, well, they said our lender. We got to reach out to our lender. And so she's like, so I just figured that they probably had a good relationship with that lender. And I'm like, so you let this entire deal kind of hinge on your interpretation of that one word that they used in there. Maybe she just used that word because she wanted to seem like they had somebody in mind already, and maybe they did. Like, we make these assumptions where we we don't kind of do our best practice. We don't do that thing that I think in our gut, Anthony, we know we should do, right? Like, Becca knew in her gut that she shouldn't have done that, right? And then she just started kind of trying to justify it. We just want to take that mindset of like, I just never leave the ball in their court.
Well, that's a really dangerous word you said there, Bob. You said assume, right?
Yeah.
Whenever we assume something, we're probably wrong. So we need to quit assuming things immediately, and we need to start asking questions.
Yeah.
Because if we keep assuming things, then you're going to have that agent or that buyer calling you saying, oh, actually, we went to an open house and we wrote an offer. We were pending over the weekend. Like, what? What do you mean you went pending over the weekend? We were just talking 2 days ago. Why didn't you call me? So we need to quit assuming things and start asking questions. Well, that's great. Who's your lender? Where do they work at? Do they have any sort of benefits that they offer you as a buyer? Would you want to know about lenders that do? Did you know about our in-house lender? They don't have any sort of origination fees, underwriting fees, and they give $1,000 discount back at closing. Would that be of value to you? Did you know that it's saving most of our clients $5,000 to $6,000 in closing costs? That's how you're going to go ahead and they're going to ask, well, when could we meet them? Who are they? What's their contact info? Well, actually, Bob, most of the times when we get people pre-qualified, we're a one-stop shop. So they come into our office, they meet with the lender, they get pre-qualified, and then we meet after that and we go over the process of buying the house. So do you want to meet on the weekday or the weekend?
Can you guys tell Anthony's done this a few times? He has. All right, so this last one here, before we transition into kind of a little more tactical stuff, is inspect what you expect. And we use this analogy in our world that like of a rocket ship going to the moon. And a rocket ship on the way to the moon makes tens of thousands of little micro adjustments along the way. But if you're just sitting back and looking, it looks like a straight line to the moon. But here's the deal. If it didn't make those adjustments early on, a slight little micro adjustment left unadjusted turns into a major miss of the moon. And so when we bring people into our world, into our business, we are constantly inspecting what we expect. And the better job we do at doing this, the less likely it is that our database is going to get to this point where somebody went 5 months without being called, right? Or we had a hot lead and it's been 3 months and there was no reminder on it, or all these kind of varied things that we see in our database. If we really choose to go in there and inspect, right, they can be mitigated earlier, which will allow the problem to not balloon. Okay, but that requires you being in there every day. It requires you, knowing how to sort around in Brivity to find those opportunities that your agents may or may not be taking advantage of. Sometimes it requires you going in, like, I'll always do this. Every time I see like a text received, right, and our agents haven't responded, I'm in that lead. I want to see exactly in that lead what is happening in here and how can I help my agents be more effective and make sure they're not going to miss this thing. Right. So if you're a leader on this call, if you're somebody that runs a team, maybe you're a sales manager, an admin, somebody that has kind of influence on the people working inside of your database, you have to constantly be inspecting what you expect. And it's something that all of our, somebody that runs any one of our given teams is doing this at the very least every 2 days, right? Every other day, but most of them are doing it every day. That they all have these kind of weekly one-on-ones set up with the different agents on the team where they sit down and they really just dig in, because there's a couple things that you find people that are just not following your processes and procedures. I mean, heck, maybe you realize, Jesus, we don't have very good processes and procedures. How was Jenny ever supposed to follow those? I never clearly laid them out for her. Anyway, you'll figure that out, and then you also figure, where can you help people? Anthony, we go in and do this, right? The last time that we went in and do this, I don't know, what are some of the things that we kind of learned?
Well, I think our biggest aha, Bob, was people were not responding back to text messages. No, we're just looking, No, we have to wait for some money to save up for a down payment. We're thinking about buying next year. We have an agent already. No response back.
Like not even a okay or a thumbs up, like nothing, right? Our agents would just be like, well, they don't have all cash and they don't want to buy this weekend, so on to the next one. But you know, Anthony, like 3 of those 4 responses were a deal, just not today, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if you make the mistake of not inspecting what you expect, even by just a week or 2 weeks, if you do that, you're going to be losing business. And that actually happened to me. I made a mistake with one of my own buyer's agents, somebody who I trust and I know is a skilled salesperson. And one of his job roles is he has to call unqualified leads every day. He puts them in the Brivity dialer and he calls them every single day because we haven't talked to him. And I looked back and I said, you haven't called these leads in the past 3 weeks. What happened? Oh, well, none of them were answering. I said, did you try texting or emailing them? He said, no. I was like, well, could you go back today, call every single lead twice, and then text or email them? He said, sure, I'll do that. He gets on the phone for a half an hour, and there was 2 buyer leads that had already bought something in the past week. He missed out on that opportunity because he didn't continually follow up with them.
And Anthony, it's Anthony's fault. And like in our world, at the end of the day, that Anthony should have been inspecting what he expected from this guy. And it's one of our fiduciary duties as a leader to our people that we set out the standards so that they clearly understand them, right? We provide the training and the mentorship for them to hit our standards, and then we inspect what we expect from them. And so Anthony, actually, you failed him, right? And I think you would admit that.
Yeah, no, I made a mistake, and that mistake, that mistake probably lost me anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. So that mistake's not going to happen again because that was painful.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's I'm gonna actually go through here. We're kind of we talked a little bit longer there maybe than I wanted to. Some of the ways to make contact here, right? Obviously, there's lots of different ways we can hit these people. We got to be fast with our contact, okay? And Anthony, look, you don't sit at your computer or on your phone all day just waiting for that next lead to come in. So what do we have? We're using these auto plans right inside of Brivity that are kind of getting us that fast contact, but you guys are still trying to get a call into that person as fast as you can, right?
Yeah, you got to be fast on these on these phone calls because every second you're taking to research the lead or read notes on them, make the call. Let the phone ring. You can read up on the lead, or you can do your research in between time. But those few minutes you're taking to spend that extra time, you're just wasting your time and not getting the lead that's ready to buy right now.
More contacts, more contacts, more contacts. I want to get to. All right, let's talk about this for a second. So one of the strategies that we use inside of our business is every single prospect or lead that comes into our world, we are basically deciding it's not should they have a listing alert or should they have a market report. It's which one of these 2 things should they have. And so a listing alert is just if we have a buyer prospect in our world, they get a listing alert and they get it from the second they enter the database. Now in Brivity, some of the ways they come in, like if you're doing leads with us or if they came into an open house, those people, a high percentage of them will get listing alerts created automatically. But in our world, every lead, no matter where it comes from, in the very beginning on day 1, day 0, that lead is in there, they're going to get a listing alert. So if they're a lead that came from Zillow, right, when they come into Brivity, they don't get an automatic listing alert set up because Brivity only knows kind of the data that Zillow kicked over, right? But we're gonna get that lead. We're gonna like somebody, right? Whoever that lead got assigned to is gonna go in there and go, what was this person looking at? Ooh, they were in Bellingham. They were looking at a $500,000 house here in Bellingham, and it had 4 bedrooms and 1.5 bath. All right, but the listing alert is just gonna be the price range and the city that they were looking in. Okay, so if they were looking at a 500,000 in Bellingham, they're going to get a listing alert from, and Anthony would know that market better, but from 420 to 580, right? He's going to give them some range, and he's going to do it before he ever talks to them. Now, he might get them on the phone the first call or the third call or the fifth call or 3 weeks from now, right? And they say, hey, actually, man, we wouldn't mind living in Ferndale or Sumas or Everson either. And Anthony says, awesome, I'm going to, adjust your search. I'm going to add those things in. But from the very beginning on day 0, it's a listing alert if they're a buyer lead in our world. In fact, sometimes agents will go out of business and we'll say, on their way out, hey, gosh, man, I think you're going to have an amazing career in whatever you choose to do next. But hey, listen, what are you doing with your database? And we'll buy it from them. And when we buy it from them, we just set those people up on listing alerts, right? We bought an agent in Bellingham's database. We're going to go in and we're going to set them up on listing alerts to get them properties in Bellingham at some average price point. We're constantly trying to get buyer prospects new listings that are hitting the market. On the other side, if they're a seller prospect, they're a past client, a sphere, I don't call those leads, right? But in our database, like if we have your address, if we know where you live and we have an email for you, you're getting a market report from us every 2 weeks. That means you're going to get touched by us 26 times throughout the year with highly relevant kind of value-added content for you. What's selling around your house? And look, Zillow exists. Like, love or hate Zillow, Anthony, which boat are you in? Do you care?
I don't really care. They send us leads. I'll take them.
All right. So love them or hate them, right? They exist because your clients wanted a market report from you for years, and we didn't have the technology, the tools. Our MLSs wouldn't give us the data to be able to do these things. Now we can send our customer all that information about what's selling around their house. Now, we don't do like Zillow and give them an estimate, right? We let them see the data and let them start to form their own opinion of what their house is worth. Because if you just start giving them an estimate, we don't even do that at a listing presentation. We use range pricing because like if you just come in there and say your house is worth 520, that's what we think you should list it at, they have a different opinion. So even in our listing presentations, we use range pricing. But market report, it's a highly, highly effective tool. Both of these things, basically every prospect that comes into our database, every single one, you guys, like you have to prove why you don't have one of these, right? So if Anthony goes in and sits down with his buyer's agent and they're looking through their leads, one of the first things he's going to do is just filter his leads in Brivity to show him all my buyer leads with no listing alert. And then Anthony's going to go, hey, Ryan, what's going on here, bud? Right? Why do we have these 8 leads over the last month that have come in and we didn't get a listing alert set up? And Ryan's going to go, oh, shoot, I missed those ones. But he's inspecting that, and we're always in here inspecting who needs a listing alert and who needs a market report. And one of the reasons is we just set them up once and then we forget about them. We don't forget about the lead necessarily. Hopefully we have some reminder out in the future when we're going to call them. But the listing alert and the market report do the job. They get that person kind of that most highly relevant information they want. For a buyer, it's new properties hitting the market. For somebody that lives in a house, it's what's selling around their house, right? Again, pretty simple. We keep this stuff pretty simple. All right, 10 days of pain. So I'm gonna skip all this. I want to leave some time for questions for you guys. Here's what we are going to do. Okay, if you are a Brivity client, I am going to pull in for you guys right now the link that we are going to use. We're going to give you guys, and this is a link for, it's called the Ben Kinney 10 Days of Pain. It's this. Let's go through it real quick. I'll highlight a couple of things that we do. So on that kind of 0 hour, that 0 day, right? The lead came in at that 0 day. We've got kind of this system, kind of what we do to prepare ourselves for that call, right? This is a task that happens. We leave 3 calls on the first day, guys. When we call leads, they get 3 calls on the first day. We don't leave a voicemail until the last call. Why do we do that? Because it's really hard for somebody to get 3 calls from the same number and not pick up. Now, Anthony, one of the things about doing that is you get some people that are kind of irritated sometimes when they pick up. So script, do this for me, right? Like, let's say you've called me the 3rd time and I'm like, hello?
Oh, is this Bob?
Yeah. Geez, was there an emergency? Like, what's going on here?
Oh, Bob, I'm so glad you answered. I apologize for calling so many times, but the reason for my call was, and then get into the reason.
So he just simple kind of deflect, get out of the way, right? Some people don't do that. Anthony, when you do 3, what percentage do you think like people are ornery and nasty at you because you called them 3 times?
It's a pretty small percentage. Most people are worried, actually. Like, is everything okay? Why is this number calling me 3 times? If somebody calls you 3 or 5 times, if somebody called me that many times, I'm bound to pick up because I got to know what's going on.
Yeah. So just, be prepared for that. But again, it's one of I think people don't do this because they make the assumption everybody's going to be mad, right? But what who's done this many times, will tell you is it's actually a pretty small percentage, and you just move right past it, right? So on that day 0, about 5 minutes after the trigger, and what I mean by that is the lead, we can set these plans up to automatically apply on the lead, right? Based on the source or the status or some different things. So 5 minutes, 5 minutes later, a text, right? Hey, Jimmy, thanks for visiting my new website. Are you looking to buy a new home, sell a property, or maybe invest in a rental? Those are like the 3 reasons people come to our website, right? Right back to Anthony's script are very similar, right? Email goes, okay? 1 hour after the first text, the second text goes. And then we kind of make a little assumption, right? If you were looking to buy, where would you want to live? Questions, though, right? We're using questions, right? 1 hour after that second text, we say, hey, this is Jimmy, right? I hope I don't have the wrong number. It might be the wrong number, right? This is our guilt text. We use this text to get Jimmy to go, no, it's me. No, you do have the right number. Sorry, I was at work, or I shouldn't have even been on the computer, right? We're just trying to elicit a response sometimes with these text messages, because now if we get a response from Jimmy, we can go back to the first 2 questions we asked him that he ignored. Now, if he responded to this one, this third text wouldn't go out. In fact, it would shut the whole rest of the plan down, and the plan had now done its job. You know Jimmy's real, right? From there, Anthony, can you handle somebody that you know is real?
If they're real, then they're getting closed.
Yeah, if they're real, then they're getting closed. Why? Because he practices what he's going to say to them. He knows how to bring value, right? He always sets a reminder, so he's got that next step to getting them to closing. And then we've got the next day, a task to call. There's a text that goes out. And then it's just a series of emails and texts. We do our emails in the morning because we assume they're at work and they're more likely to check their email when they're sitting at their office at work. We do our text messages later in the afternoon or in the early evening because most people can, if I'm at work, a lot of people can't respond to a text at work, so it makes more sense to do that in the evening when they're not at work. The rest of this series is based on items of value we provide for our team. Now, you guys might not be able to say this thing right here, right? If you don't have the Keller Mortgage or some mortgage partner you work with that does 0 lender fees, you can't use that text. You'd have to swap something else into that. Third email, right? And again, these emails and texts all just play off each other. Hey, we have some homes coming on the market in the next few days. What is your time frame for purchasing? Now, on our teams, like on Anthony's team up there in Bellingham, our team actually always has properties in the next few days, right? But even if you didn't, Anthony, your guys' office has stuff coming on the market in the next few days, right? Like,
that should be your response to anybody that asks.
Yeah. Do you have properties coming on in the next? Yeah, right. Or we do personally, our office does, or some other agent in our collaborative MLS does, right? Yeah. Third call, hi again. I know you haven't responded to me. So this is, for any of you guys that are kind of intimately familiar with Ben and our team and kind of how we operate, we have Jolene. And Anthony will tell you, Jolene is like, she softens our edges. Right. And so when we were going through the 10 days of pain, like if it was all Ben, right, there would be like, he would just be driving for the close. Right. But Jolene, we added this one in, which is like, she said, you know what, I think like at this point, it's day 4. They've ignored, I think it's 5 texts from us already. Right. And they've ignored 4 emails. We've had listing alerts going out, potentially for 4 days. Right. We've hit this person at this point with about 14 or 15 different contact attempts. Actually, might even be higher than that. So she's like, we got to put something in there to say, look, don't feel bad if you haven't responded. That's not a big deal, right? And so that one's in there. Would you like to see a report of all the active, pending, and sold properties in the last 30 days? What's your address? Right? Trying to offer value and then ask a question that's relevant to that value that we're offering, right? This is, Anthony, if we sit down with buyers all the time in our buyer consultation, we're able to show them how between mortgage interest deduction and appreciation on that property in the first year, they're going to be $20,000 on average in our market ahead just in their net worth and in their how much they're worth, right? We can have that conversation on our team. Any one of our agents can have it. If you can't, probably not an offer you want to make, but you're going to have this in there. And if you don't change it, somebody's going to respond to that, I promise you, and say, yeah, that sounds interesting. And then you're going to have to figure out how to go out and have that conversation with them. Again, we just continue, right? Hey, would you like to see a list of homes not listed on the market and avoid competing with other buyers? We have a thing that we use called the would sell list, right? People we've talked to in the past, seller leads that we've talked to, said, yeah, I'm not going to sell now. And we say, hey, listen, if we were to bring you a buyer a month from now, 3 months from now, a year from now, and they really wanted your house, really wanted it, and like we're ready, could we call you and see if the timing was better for you then? And they'll always say, yeah, sure, fine. If you have a real buyer, they want to buy my house a year from now, yeah, give us a call. So we have a list like this. You can't offer that if you don't have that, because by the way, this one gets a bunch of response, especially in a market that's hot. Now, we might not be in a market that's hot in a couple of months from now, but right now we still are. Did I drop the ball? The next one I love, this is my favorite. It just says Jim. Anthony, this one cracks me up because sometimes people respond and go, who is this? And you're like, what do you mean, who is this? There's 8 texts behind, on top of that one. Just look back and you'll realize it's Anthony Zapata with the Ben Kinney Team. But we just say on day 10, right? Jim. Yeah. And then we end with I love texting. You hate responding. Jalene's actually softened this. In the version I'm going to share with you guys here in just a second, it actually says, I love texting. You don't love responding, because Jalene thinks the word hate is no good. Again, she softens our edges. So I'm going to come in here right now. You guys, I just ran through that thing really fast. After the 10 days of pain, we do a few things here. You guys will get a recording of this, so you can go back and watch the recording, kind of slow this down. But basically, we make sure they've got their alerts set up. We make sure to set a reminder, right? Because we're going to follow up with them a week from now, or a month from now, even if they've been non-responsive to this kind of all-out assault on them in the first 14 days. By the way, the reason we do this all-out assault in the first 14 days is because even though statistically NAR tells us a new lead that comes to our website today is not going to buy for about 9 months, they're actually going to pick the agent that they're going to ultimately work with in the first 10 days. So we want to try to get them to pick us. Now, sometimes they don't tell us that we're the agent they picked. They just kind of file us away because we were so aggressive in trying to get them to work with us. But they think, I don't want to bother Anthony right now, right? We're not totally ready, but man, that guy did a really great job. Like, I'm going to work with him when I'm ready. So Anthony just keeps once a month, right? He's going to keep following up with that person. Now, I'm going to share right now. So as I leave this on here, let me pull up the Ben Kinney Team, and I'm pulling this from Jacqueline in Vancouver. Thank you, Jacqueline, for allowing us to share this one from your account. She's placed this since we gave it to her on 1,500 of their leads. So here we go. In the chat area, or in your questions area, I just sent the link to everybody. In the chat area, I'm going to send this link to everybody. Here's what this link is, okay? Copy it. Now, that link, what you need to do is on your computer, you need to be logged into Brivity either as an account owner or an admin. If you're an agent level user in Brivity, clicking that link's not going to do anything. But if you're an account owner or an admin level user in Brivity, when you click that link right there, we're going to pull in the Ben Kinney 10 Days of Pain into your account. Okay? Now, when you get in there, Anthony, can you see that? Can you?
Yeah, I can.
You can see my actual desktop, like my Brivity? Okay. When you get in there and click that, after you click it, you're gonna have in this shared with me area, like a plan that was shared with you. And then you just come in here and hit add to plans, and it'll add it over here to your people plan. But there's something you need to do, okay? Like literally you need to do this. If you don't do it, you're gonna be greeting your clients as if you worked for the Ben Kinney Team. So when you come in here to edit this plan, right, you're going to say, look, maybe there's some stuff you want to get rid of, some text that you're like, we don't do that. We shouldn't say that. But in this first day, this very first text and this very first email are the only places in here where it's hard coded in something you don't want, which is it says Ben Kinney Real Estate Team. So you just need to come in here and, if you were the power team, right, you would change that, right? And then just hit save. So you want to update that text message. where it says Ben Kinney Real Estate Team, and you want to update this email here where it says Ben Kinney Team. All the rest of it, nothing else in this series actually says anything to do with us. It could be anybody. Now, do you offer a zero lender fee program, right? With maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you don't, get rid of that one or change it, right? Edit it and put in some item of value that you do offer. All right, we're 4 minutes past the top of the hour. I want to, Anthony, you got to look. We still have a ton of people on here. You want to answer a couple of questions? Do you still have time for me? I appreciate you going 4 minutes past. I know you're a highly scheduled individual.
Yeah, I got another 20 minutes I can take. Hopefully not that long, but let's answer some questions.
All right, so I love it. Jenny, you just asked my favorite question of the day. Jenny says, I'm a new ISA and my broker sent me this webinar to attend. I don't know if we have Brivity, but this has been super valuable. How can my broker get Brivity? Your broker can go to Brivity.com and there's a big demo button right there. If you guys, Jenny, you wanted to go in and look at doing a demo of Brivity. We use Sync, not Cheryl. So you can look through. Well, we'll send the recording out, so you can go in and get those. I went through every one of those slides. You can pause it and see exactly how our 10 days of pain lays out. I can't share with you because it's built in here, right? It's like literally built into Brivity, so we've got the ability to kind of share it. I could maybe share the slides with you if you wanted. My email is bob@benkinney.com if you wanted to reach out to me. Maybe, Cheryl, I'd trade you, go do a demo at Brivity, and then I'll just sit through it, right? It might be painful. You might be like, I know I'm not buying this thing. I might just sit through it. If it's worth 15 minutes of your time, take 15 minutes on a demo with one of our guys. I'll give you that. I'll give you my slide deck that has all the breakdown of that thing on it. Is it possible to get the scripts Ben uses for his listing presentation? Yeah, here, watch. I'll show you how you get those scripts. It's really awesome here. Let's go a little less full screen here. You go to youtube.com and look, YouTube knows where I was headed. Right here, youtube.com/Mr. Ben Kinney, Taylor. And on Ben's page here, it auto starts this place kind of deal. But right down here in this little area, this how to list 500 homes a year with Ben Kinney, and then you're gonna have to watch and see me on here too. But this hour-long presentation is Ben giving his listing presentation with a commentary kind of wrapped around it. Okay, so he uses me as I'm the seller in this video, and we go through and he actually gives the listing presentation that Anthony remembers 8 years ago or 7 years ago, sitting on the couch or having ice cream with Ben, and Ben saying, have you memorized the listing presentation? Have you memorized the listing presentation? This is that presentation. So I can send this out. You can go find it on youtube.com/Mr. Ben Kinney. So here's the listing presentation. I will send this to everybody there it is in the chat area as well. Curtis, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Email one more time. My email is bob@benkinney.com. I have an independent agency, so how can I get this? Peggy, we work with hundreds of independent agencies at Brivity. Just go to brivity.com and do the request a demo, and you can talk to one of our people. Here's the deal. Let me take you back to this slide. If you go to Brivity and do the demo, okay, once you're done with the demo, we'll give you Ben Kinney's listing presentation, like the actual slide deck that we build his presentation from. The fun thing is it'll almost be impossible for you. I mean, you can R&D, we call that, rip off and duplicate some of the different elements of it, but the actual listing presentation itself relies heavily on certain aspects of Brivity. Right? And so you couldn't go give our listing presentation unless you actually had Brivity, because we talk about things like our transaction management that keeps our sellers up to date on every single step that we're taking to get their house sold, right? And that's part of our listing presentation. It's one of our slides in the listing presentation. But you can see what we do, and we share everything. Like we became the #1 team in the United States. I firmly believe this, you guys, because we will show you every single thing we're doing in our business, which forces us to get better. Because if you guys start doing it as good as we're doing it, then we got to get better to hold that position, right? And so guys like Anthony are willing to come out here and share all of this stuff with you guys. because we just know the competition like just breeds innovation. We're going to get better because we're sharing everything we do. Todd, he says, I'm a KW agent, just signed up for Brivity, getting a lot of pressure from my market center to use command, don't want to use both. What do I do? I would say, Todd, listen, our teams, the only pressure your market center can put on you is your paycheck. So I know they're putting pressure on you to put your green sheets in there or like that, to get paid. So our teams all have to do that. But look, we closed 2,843 transactions last year. Not all of them had that command pressure being placed on it. I don't know. So far, Anthony, we did 1 week this year where we had 99 pendings in 1 week on our team. Like the math on that is pretty ridiculous. That was in like February too. I think what's our goal for the team? Our goal's up over 5,000, right?
Yeah, for this year.
Yeah. Anyway, Todd, 5,000 times we're going to have to do what our market centers want us to do, but our teams are still going to operate out of Brivity. So I would say like use the tool that right now like gives you the best tools. And look, I think ultimately command's going to be really awesome. And we'll have to stay ahead of them and always be a little bit more awesome in order for you to want to use Brivity, right? But today, Brivity is quite a bit ahead of command in terms of what it's capable of doing for you. Now, their vision of what command will become, if that was the reality today, then I would say use command because their vision is everything Brivity is today, right? But the actuality of what you can perform, like just I'll give you one example. Market reports, the data inside of their kind of market snapshots or whatever they call those, it's compiled data, which is showing your client kind of the average price of houses in their neighborhood, the average days on market, right? A Brivity market report is showing them the actual sold price of the house across the street from them. There's a big difference in that data. Anyway, all right. You guys go to Brivity.com, get yourself a demo. Anthony, man, I'm a big fan of yours. I don't have any question why Ben and Jolene have taken this big step of kind of putting you and Ryan in charge of that hub operation. You're being kind of promoted to the team lead of that Bellingham Ben Kinney team. After listening to you today, I doubt anybody on this call has any question about why that would be the case. I've gotten to get to know you a little bit over the years, so I don't have any questions. Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate you doing this today.
Hey, I appreciate it. It's been a really good demo you did, Bob. I appreciate even learning a little more from you every day.
All right, guys. Hey, you guys all get back to your real lives. And on behalf of Anthony and Mikey behind the scenes and some of the other people here that make these things happen, my name is Bob Stewart. Guess what? Wash your hands today, okay? Like wash them more than you ever would have, Anthony, especially us up here in Seattle. Like let's just wash our hands. We all do our part. Hey, you guys have a great day. Anthony, appreciate you, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Later, guys.